Many of us know mussels as a seaside treat, perfect with a white wine sauce or on a Mediterranean menu. But mussels help us in many ways beyond our plate. Mussels are prolific filter feeders, improving our water quality and clarity. By forming reefs, mussels can also stabilize the sediment and build complex habitats for other animals, increasing local biodiversity. On a larger scale, mussels are an important component of the denitrification process, improving nutrient cycles. Finally, mussels are the basis of a global marine harvesting and aquaculture industry, bringing in over $300 million a year in New Zealand alone. These incredible reefs, however, are at risk. Like other reef-building bivalves, mussels have experienced dramatic declines since historical levels as a result of a variety of factors, like overharvesting, habitat loss, and predation. On a local scale, however, it can be difficult to quantify what this decline actually looks like and determine the potential for future recovery. Here, we focus in on a specific area, locally known as the mussel capital of New Zealand, for its once expansive mussel reefs, to track the decline of natural mussel populations and address concerns over future recovery. At the very top of New Zealand's South Island are the Marlborough Sounds, a complex drowned river valley system which includes Kenepuru Sound, one of the innermost arms. Kenepuru Sound is known historically for the abundant populations of New Zealand's endemic green-lipped mussels along its shorelines. These populations were recorded in the last scientific surveys of the Sound in the late 1960s. In the 1970s, Kenepuru began a rich history with mussel harvesting, and was the center point for an extensive commercial handpicking industry. Now the Kenepuru is better known for its aquaculture mussel farms. The wild intertidal mussel populations, however, are locally known to have been extensively depleted in the last 60 years. Because there has been no further scientific surveys of these mussels since the 1960s, there is a data gap, making it impossible to determine the extent of mussel decline, causes behind population loss, and how the populations may recover in the future. The first step in addressing these data gaps was accurately determining the current population levels of mussels in Kenepuru. To accomplish this, I surveyed the 73-kilometer shoreline of Kenepuru Sound at low spring tides. During these surveys, I quantified mussel abundances, densities, and lengths, as well as substrates and other species present. Additionally, 44 subtidal locations were surveyed with an underwater camera, although no mussels were present at any of these subtidal locations. In total, over 107,000 mussels were recorded. In some ways, these remnant populations are good news for wild mussels, indicating that they can still survive throughout the Kenepuru. The bad news is that they are nowhere near historical levels. The last surveys conducted on these mussels from the 1960s recorded far greater densities. Each point on this map from a historical survey had over 30 mussels per square meter. Now, only 3 sections reach those densities, and none even approach the historical highs of 70 mussels per square meter. As further evidence of this massive decline, I also combed through historical records from mussel harvesters in the 1960s and 70s. At the peak of the industry, from 1968 to 1973, over 4.9 million mussels were harvested from Kenepuru Sound, meaning historical abundances were at least close to 5 million. Comparing this historical abundance to the current 108,000 mussels recorded in the surveys means there's been a 97% decline in mussels in Kenepuru Sound since the mid-1960s. An additional concern was that almost no juvenile recruitment was recorded throughout the survey, with only 2 juvenile mussels, or mussels below 30 millimeters, recorded. The resurveys confirmed that mussel populations have declined dramatically in the Kenepuru since the 1960s, and that natural recovery seems limited. The next question, then, was what led to these declines, and what is hindering recovery? To answer these questions, I interviewed long-term residents of the area, people whose memories stretch back 50, 60, 70 or more years. I interviewed 13 long-term community members, asking them about the historical abundances of mussels to confirm the results of the surveys, what led to declines, and what factors may be preventing recovery. On the first points, they are nearly unanimous. Mussel populations were historically at far greater levels. Helen Godsif, a resident of the Sounds for 83 years, described the historical populations this way.
Yes, well, it used to be practically a line of mussels right round the shoreline. Would have been, I don't know, 2-3 metres wide of just mussel bed, low tide mark, and a bit beyond.
The cause of decline is equally clear: widespread hand-picking in the 1970s. Gary Orchard, a third-generation Sounds resident of 65 years, described the hand-picking process this way.
The concentration of the pickers, they would take it all. They'd take every mussel. The beaches were cleaned out.
Commercial handpicking, however, ended 40 years ago and was strictly enforced. When one group of commercial handpickers tried to harvest in Kenepuru, local residents warned them off, first with a rifle shot, and then by rowing towards them armed with sledgehammers, yelling, "If we can't have them, neither can you." Safe to say, Kenepuru mussels finally experienced a reprieve from overharvesting. But that was over 4 decades ago, and mussels still have not recovered. It was this lack of recovery that I asked residents about, and they had mixed views. Sedimentation, competition for marine farms, and lack of settlement surfaces like algae for larval mussels were the most common factors identified by residents behind this lack of recovery, but predation, lack of reef structure, and pollution were also suggested. The key to successfully restoring these populations and the valuable ecosystem services they provide, then, is determining which of these factors are most probable and mitigating them to encourage natural recovery and benefit future restoration projects. An additional important element that has emerged from both the resurveys and interviews is the shifting baselines of mussel sizes. The historical surveys recorded an average mussel size of 150 millimeters, with maximums of nearly 200 millimeters, sizes confirmed by residents who reported huge historical mussels. My own resurveys, however, have indicated a marked shift in mussel sizes, with mussels averaging only 105 millimeters. That's 45 millimeters below the historical average. This size shift may be due to many factors, including those identified behind the lack of recovery. One important element, though, appears to be mussel density, as larger mussels were recorded at sites with over 20 mussels per square meter, which were also the only sites with mussels in the smallest size class, representing new recruitment. It's possible that mussels need some sort of reef structure, or the corresponding chemical cues, to recruit and grow to maximum sizes, potentially emphasizing the importance of utilizing these reef effects in future restoration efforts. Taken as a whole, this data provides a compelling history of green-lipped mussels in the Kenepuru. Mussels were once abundant, were heavily degraded by commercial handpicking, and have yet to recover, potentially due to a variety of factors, leaving the current shoreline with only remnant populations. Globally, a number of organizations and working groups have responded to bivalve decline with calls for restoration. By narrowing in on the local scale, better baseline data, like current population levels and historic factors of decline, helps us understand where this restoration is needed and what kind of projects should be undertaken. In the Kenepuru, this multidisciplinary combination of historical review, population surveys, and local ecological knowledge revealed that overharvesting was the force behind a 97% decline in wild mussels. These novel methods also allowed us to identify potential factors that have prevented mussels from recovering over the 40 years since the end of wild harvesting. Factors that we can now work to mitigate in future restoration projects as we try to bring these vital ecosystems back from the brink. In conclusion, mussel populations worldwide and in the Kenepuru are in dire straits, facing extreme declines and continued threats. Restoration offers a way forward, but only if it is grounded in robust baseline data and informed by local contexts, or else mussel capital may well become a term of the past. Hi Surf, thanks for watching my presentation. I just want to end by thanking some of the people who have been really vital to this whole process. First, my advisors at the University of Auckland and the National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research, that's Andrew Jeffs, Jenny Hillman, and Sean Handley. Also to my colleagues, Emily Benjamin and Cornelius Prinsloo for their help throughout this project. And finally to the Kenepuru community, who shared their hearts, their homes, and their stories with me. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me either here at Surf or via Twitter or my email, and enjoy the rest of the conference.